My parents, who didn't attend my wedding because I wouldn't pay for my brother's wedding, are now asking for my help because they're about to be homeless. Throwaway because my brother sometimes uses Reddit and I don't want this getting any worse than it already is. I, female 30, have always been in the shadow of my little brother Eric, male 28. Like my whole life has been about how Eric needs more attention, more help, more money, more everything. And I'm just expected to be fine on my own. My parents, Marie and Ronald, have basically treated us completely differently since we were kids, and it's so obvious that literally everyone in our extended family sees it, but nobody ever says anything because that would be stirring up drama. My aunt's words, not mine. I put myself through college with scholarships and student loans while working this horrible coffee shop job where I regularly got yelled at by entitled customers. Oh my freaking God, I still have nightmares about this one lady who threw her latte at me because it wasn't hot enough. Like, what the frick? Anyway, I worked like 25 to 30 hours a week while taking a full course load. Meanwhile, my brother got a full ride from my parents. Tuition, apartment, spending money, everything. I'm a financial analyst now, and I'm doing pretty well for myself, which I'm proud of because I worked my ass off to get here with zero help from my parents. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Okay, maybe a little lol. Just to give you guys some examples of the favoritism. There are like a million, but here are a few. When Eric turned 15, my dad spent weeks teaching him how to drive, taking him to empty parking lots on weekends to practice. When I turned 16 and asked my dad to teach me, he literally told me I could figure it out myself because I was smarter than Eric and would pick it up faster. I had to get my friend's older brother to teach me, which was super awkward, by the way. For homecoming my junior year, my mom literally hand-sewed Eric's date's dress because they wanted to match or whatever. It was actually really beautiful, which makes it worse somehow. But gave me $20 and told me to check the thrift store for my dress. $20 for a whole dress and shoes and everything. I ended up borrowing stuff from friends. They missed my college graduation, which I was actually really proud of because I graduated with honors while working that whole time. Because Eric had to get his wisdom teeth removed that day. Like, that surgery could have been scheduled literally any other day. But nope, that day was apparently the only option. I sat alone at graduation. Well, not completely alone. My roommate's parents took me out to dinner after, which was really nice of them, but also kind of sad. I spent 3 years in therapy in my mid-20s trying to deal with all this. I honestly thought I was just being overdramatic or sensitive until my therapist was like, no, that's actually really messed up treatment. It helped a lot with my self-esteem and all the feelings of not being good enough that I'd carried around my whole life. But obviously some of that stuff never fully goes away, you know. Anyway, about 4 years ago, I met my now husband Jonathan, male, 32, at my friend's barbecue. We bonded over hiking. We've summited 12 mountains together, including this really difficult one where I almost fell off a ledge, but that's a whole other story. And he proposed on top of Mount Rainier about 18 months ago. It was perfect and I was so happy, like legitimately the happiest I've ever been in my life. So we planned this wedding that was pretty modest, but still nice at this botanical garden near us. Nothing crazy expensive, but still really beautiful with about 75 guests. We were paying for everything ourselves and had a budget we were sticking to. I was actually really proud of how we were handling everything responsibly. Then, 3 months after we got engaged, Eric proposes to his girlfriend Krista, female, 26, and immediately schedules their wedding for 2 months before ours. Whatever, right? I mean, I was annoyed, but tried not to read into it, even though it felt like he was trying to steal our thunder, which he has literally done my entire life, but whatever. I'm not bitter. Okay, I'm a little bitter. So then I get this call from my mom about wedding plans. We talked about our guest list, and I told her we were keeping it small because of our budget. Then she mentioned Eric and Krista were having budget troubles with their wedding. I thought she was just venting, but then she said she was hoping I could chip in for their wedding. I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She pointed out that Jonathan and I make good money, and when I asked why I would pay for their wedding, she said Eric was struggling. When I asked how much they wanted, she said about $15,000 would be fair. $15,000. I almost choked. I told her absolutely not, that was insane, and we were paying for our own wedding ourselves. The next week, they invited me over for dinner. Eric wasn't there at first. My dad told me I've always been the responsible one, and my mom said they always knew I'd be successful. Eric showed up halfway through dinner like he was planned to be there all along, which he probably was. He started complaining about how it's not fair that I won't help out because he's really struggling. He said this while literally wearing a brand new Apple Watch and had just bought a new car 2 months earlier. I know because he posted all about it on Instagram with hashtags like blessed and new car energy. Ugh. I finally lost it and pointed out that they paid for his entire college education, but not a cent of mine. My mom just dismissed it, saying Eric needed more support and I was always more independent. Then my dad told me either I helped pay for Eric's wedding or they wouldn't come to mine. I was crying so hard I could barely drive home. I called Jonathan sobbing and he was furious with them. Like, I've never seen him that angry before. He was like, F them, except he actually said the word. After talking about it for days and a couple emergency sessions with my therapist, Lol, I decided to stand my ground. I told them I wouldn't be paying for Eric's wedding, and if that meant they wouldn't come to mine, that was their choice. Part of me didn't believe they'd actually follow through with the threat because, what parents would miss their daughter's wedding over something like this? But they did. None of them, my parents or Eric, came to my wedding. It was beautiful anyway, and Jonathan's family was amazing. His mom basically adopted me at this point, and his sisters are like the sisters I never had. But there was this hole where my family should have been. I kept thinking they might show up last minute, but nope. I cut contact with all of them after that. I haven't spoken to any of them in 2 years. Though sometimes I check Facebook and see Eric posting pics from their honeymoon in Bali, which we couldn't afford for our honeymoon. We went to a cabin in the mountains instead, which was still awesome, but not Bali. So here's why I'm posting now. Yesterday I got a call from my parents. They told me they're about to be homeless and they desperately need my help. I didn't get many details because I was so shocked to hear from them after all this time. I think I just said, I'll call you back, and hung up because I was literally shaking. I feel so conflicted. Part of me feels vindicated, like karma finally caught up to them, but another part feels guilty, like I should help because they're still my parents. But they chose Eric over me my entire life, including on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Jonathan says I should at least hear them out, but he'll support whatever decision I make. He's seriously the best husband ever, and basically the first person who ever put me first. I'm not crying writing this, you're crying. I don't know what to do. Am I a terrible person if I don't help them? Would I be a complete doormat if I did? Has anyone else been in a situation like this? Edit. I should probably clarify that my brother isn't disabled or anything that would explain the extra support he's always gotten. He's completely capable, just lazy and entitled from a lifetime of being the golden child. I probably sound really harsh saying that, but I've had years of therapy to process this stuff. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and comments. To those asking why I even check Eric's social media, I know it's unhealthy, but sometimes I just can't help it. And yes, I've tried blocking him, but then I just get curious and look anyway. Working on this with my therapist, a lot of people are asking what happened to my parents' money and why they're suddenly homeless. I honestly don't know the details yet. I'm going to call them back today and try to get more information. We'll update when I know more. To the person who DM'd me saying I'm selfish and family should always help family, did you even read the post? Where was that family energy when they missed my wedding? Now for the first update. Wow, thank you so much to everyone who commented and messaged me on my last post. I honestly didn't expect that many responses, and I've been trying to read through them all, but there are so many. So I guess I should give you all an update on what's been happening since I posted. First, for those who asked about my wedding, yes, it went ahead without my parents and brother there. It was smaller than we planned, but it was still really beautiful. Jonathan's family was amazing through the whole thing. His mom stepped in and did all the mother of the bride stuff with me. She even surprised me with this handmade wedding quilt, using fabrics that reminded her of me and Jonathan's relationship, like fabric with mountains on it because of our hiking, and some blue fabric that matched my eyes. I literally cried when she gave it to me. It meant so much, especially since my own mom wasn't there. Jonathan's mom is basically the mom I wish I had grown up with, honestly. I found out through my Aunt Marlene that Eric and Krista's wedding was totally over the top with 250 plus guests at this fancy country club. A 7-tier cake. Who needs 7 tiers? That's just wasteful. And apparently they had this live band that cost like $10,000. And guess what? My parents took out a second mortgage on their house to pay for it all. So they were willing to literally put their house at risk for Eric's wedding, but couldn't even show up to mine. Cool, cool, cool. After everything went down with the wedding, our extended family kind of divided. Aunt Marlene and two of my cousins have been supportive of me. They thought what my parents did was horrible, and they all came to my wedding. But most of the other relatives sided with my parents. My Uncle Dave actually called me selfish and ungrateful in a Facebook comment that he later deleted, but not before I screenshot it, lol. Jessica told me that at the last family reunion, my cousin Rachel was saying I abandoned the family because I think I'm better than everyone now that I have money, which is ridiculous because 1, I worked my ass off for everything I have, and 2, I'm not even that wealthy. We're just financially responsible, unlike some people I know. Speaking of finances, Jonathan and I have been doing pretty well in the 2 years since I cut contact with my parents and Eric. We bought a modest 3-bedroom home in a good school district last year. We've both gotten promotions at work. Jonathan's now a senior software engineer, and I moved up to senior financial analyst. We've been putting a lot into our retirement accounts and trying to be smart with our money. We even started a vacation fund for a trip to Europe next year, though now I'm wondering if that money might have to go elsewhere. So anyway, about 8 months ago, Aunt Marlene started telling me some stuff about my parents and Eric that was concerning. Apparently, Eric lost his job at the marketing firm because he kept calling in sick after his weekend gambling trips. Then Krista got pregnant but had some complications and was put on bed rest for a while. Eric and Krista ended up moving in with my parents about 6 months ago because they couldn't afford their rent anymore. According to Aunt Marlene, my parents have been covering Eric's gambling debts on top of supporting him and Krista, and they've fallen behind on their mortgage payments and other bills. Marlene told me last month that the bank finally issued a foreclosure notice on their house. I guess all those years of bailing out Eric finally caught up with them. I started getting increasingly desperate voicemails from my parents about a month ago. At first, I just ignored them because I was still hurt about everything. But last week, I finally agreed to meet them at a coffee shop to hear them out. When my parents walked in, I barely recognized them. They look so much older and tired. My dad's hair is completely gray now, and my mom has lost a lot of weight, but not in a healthy way. My mom tried to hug me, but I stepped back. I just couldn't. I asked them about their financial situation. My mom started crying about losing their home. My dad admitted they've spent over $180,000 helping Eric in the past 3 years. Like what? Who has that kind of money to just give away? I asked why they couldn't just stay with Eric and Krista, and they told me Eric and Krista had moved in with Krista's parents after they all got kicked out of my parents' house, and my parents weren't invited to join them there. My dad said Eric is refusing to help them financially at all. Then my dad asked if they could stay with me and Jonathan just for a few months until they get back on their feet. I told them I needed time to think and talk to Jonathan before making any decisions. I feel so conflicted about all this. On one hand, they're clearly desperate and in a real crisis. On the other hand, they literally brought this on themselves by constantly enabling Eric and his irresponsible behavior. I looked at Eric's Instagram yesterday. I know, I shouldn't torture myself, but I couldn't help it. And he's still taking weekend trips to casinos while our parents are about to be homeless. It's absolutely infuriating. Like, how can he be so selfish? And how can my parents still not see what he's doing to them? My parents are currently staying with my great-aunt Anne, who's 82 years old. She's letting them sleep in her living room, but she can only keep them for another 2 weeks at most. She has bad arthritis, and sleeping on her own couch is making it flare up, which makes me feel terrible for her. Jonathan has been really supportive through all this and says he'll back whatever decision I make. But he did warn me about enabling toxic patterns and getting sucked back into the same old dynamic with my family. He's right, but at the same time, they're my parents. Despite everything, I don't want them to be homeless. I mean, I'm still angry and hurt about everything, but seeing them looking so broken down and desperate was really hard. I'm considering offering some limited help with really strict conditions and boundaries, like maybe helping them with the deposit and first month's rent on a small apartment, but making it clear that's all they're getting from me, and definitely not letting them stay with us because I know that would be a disaster. I can just imagine my mom rearranging my kitchen and criticizing how I fold towels within 24 hours. Am I crazy for even considering helping them? Would I be sacrificing my self-respect if I did, or would I be heartless if I didn't? I'm so torn between compassion and self-protection right now. Part of me feels like they're finally facing the consequences of their actions after all these years, but another part feels guilty seeing them struggle. Ugh, families are complicated. Edit. Thanks for all the responses so far. To those asking why Eric can't help them, apparently he claims he has no money despite the casino trips I mentioned. And yes, I've confirmed through Aunt Marlene that he actually has a gambling problem. It's not just occasional trips. Several people have asked about my parents' jobs. My dad worked in insurance for 30+ years, but was laid off during COVID and then retired, also known as couldn't find another job at his age. My mom has only worked part-time jobs on and off throughout her life. Neither has much in retirement savings because, well, Eric. For those asking if I've talked to my therapist about this, yes, I have an appointment tomorrow. I've been seeing her less frequently, just once a month, since things have been going well, but I called for an emergency session when all this happened. Now for the second update. After my last post, I had that emergency therapy session I mentioned. My therapist said I needed to decide what I could live with. Both helping them and not helping them would come with emotional consequences, and I needed to figure out which ones I could handle better. I talked it over with Jonathan for like hours. Seriously, we stayed up until 2 a.m. one night, just going in circles about it, and we finally came to a decision that we both felt okay with. We decided to offer my parents some help, but with very specific conditions. I wasn't going to just hand over cash or let them move in with us, so we came up with what we thought was a pretty generous offer. We would pay first last month's rent and security deposit on a modest apartment up to $7,500 total. We would pay their rent directly to the landlord, not to them, for 6 months, up to $1,100 per month. They would have to attend financial counseling, which I would pay for. They would not be allowed to house Eric at this apartment. They would not get any additional money from us beyond what we agreed to. After the 6 months, they would be on their own. I called my parents to tell them about our offer. There was this long silence on the phone after I laid out the terms, and I immediately got defensive because I thought they were being ungrateful. Turns out, they were just shocked we were willing to help at all. At least that's what they said later. By this point, they'd been staying with my great-aunt Anne for almost 3 weeks, and her arthritis was getting really bad from sleeping on her own couch. Anyway, I arranged to meet them at a restaurant to discuss everything in detail. Jonathan helped me draft a simple agreement, not like a legal contract or anything, just something in writing so they couldn't claim later that we promised something else. I know that probably sounds cold, but after everything that's happened, I felt like I needed some protection. When I got to the restaurant, they were already there waiting. My mom immediately asked if they could just stay with us instead. I had to take a deep breath because I could feel myself getting frustrated already. I explained again that wasn't an option, and that our offer was what it was. During the conversation, my dad admitted they've spent over $300,000 on Eric since his college graduation. $300,000. Where did they even get that kind of money? My mom just nodded like this was a perfectly normal amount to spend on your adult son. She kept saying, Eric has always needed extra support, like it's some kind of mantra she's been repeating to herself for decades. I couldn't help pointing out that they never offered me any financial support. Not for college, not for my first apartment, not for my wedding, nothing. My dad actually looked kind of ashamed and said, "We just thought you'd be fine." Like being self-sufficient was some kind of punishment they gave me because they thought I could handle it. What kind of backwards logic is that? Then my mom told me that the wedding ultimatum, either I help pay for Eric's wedding or they wouldn't come to mine, was actually Eric's idea, not theirs. She said he convinced them it was only fair since they had helped him so much already. I honestly don't know if I believe that. I mean, they're adults who made their own choice, but it was easier to blame Eric, I guess. My dad showed me their bank statements to prove how bad things had gotten. They had like $43 in their checking account. $43, and credit card debt in the tens of thousands. It was honestly shocking to see. I pushed the agreement across the table and asked them to sign it if they wanted our help. My dad signed it immediately, but my mom hesitated. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for me to change my mind or offer more. Finally, she signed it too, but she wouldn't look me in the eye. So we helped them find this small one-bedroom apartment in a decent area. Not fancy at all, but clean and safe. I paid the deposits and first month's rent directly to the landlord and set up automatic payments for the next 5 months. I had planned to keep emotional distance while helping them, but I ended up taking them to IKEA to get some basic furniture. Just a bed, table, chairs, and a small couch. And we found some other stuff at secondhand shops. I told myself I was just being practical because they didn't have anything. But honestly, seeing them so helpless made me feel something. Not forgiveness exactly, but something. 2 days after they moved in, Eric called me screaming. Like I had to hold the phone away from my ear. He was upset about how I was trying to make him look bad by helping our parents when he couldn't. I pointed out that he abandoned them when they needed help after spending years bailing him out. He claimed he couldn't afford to help them because Krista was pregnant and they had a baby coming. I, stupidly, mentioned that I've seen his weekend gambling trips on Instagram. That set him off even more. He started yelling about how I have no right to judge how he spends his own money. I finally asked him the question I've been wanting to ask for years. Why did he think I should pay for his wedding? And he actually said, because you've always had everything easy. I laughed. I actually laughed because it was so ridiculous. He has this completely warped perspective where somehow I'm the privileged one because I worked hard and made good decisions while he was getting constant handouts. Then he demanded that I give him money too since I'm so rich now. I'm not rich, I'm just financially stable because I didn't blow all my money at casinos. I told him absolutely not and hung up. I was shaking for like an hour afterward. Over the next 3 months, things developed in ways I never expected. My parents actually went to the financial counseling sessions. I was shocked. They both got part-time jobs for the first time in years. My dad is working at a hardware store and my mom got a job at a department store. They're not making much, but it's something. And weirdly, we've started developing a more honest relationship. We've had some really difficult conversations about the past, and while they haven't exactly apologized for everything, they've at least acknowledged some of it. But things changed last week when Eric and Krista had their baby. It's a boy, by the way. Eric called me demanding that I help them with baby expenses since I was helping mom and dad. I didn't commit to anything but said I'd come to the hospital to see the baby. When I got there, with a modest gift, just some cute onesies and a small stuffed animal, Eric immediately started asking about financial help in front of everyone. His in-laws, our parents, nurses walking by, everyone. I tried to quietly suggest we talk about it privately later, but he just got louder, telling the whole room that I was refusing to help family. And then something I never expected happened. My mom actually intervened and told Eric to stop. She told him that I had already done enough for the family. My dad nodded and added that Eric needed to take responsibility for his own family now. Eric looked shocked. I don't think he's ever heard them say no to him before. Krista's parents looked super uncomfortable and suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. Eric started accusing our parents of choosing me over him, and my mom told him they'd enabled his behavior for too long and it was time for that to stop. Eric stormed out, leaving Krista alone with the baby. She looked exhausted and embarrassed. The four of us, me, my parents, and Krista, just sat there in this weird silence for a minute. It was like something fundamental had shifted in our family dynamic. That confrontation changed everything. My parents finally standing up to Eric was something I honestly never thought I'd see. After seeing how they're genuinely trying to rebuild their lives, I've extended their rental assistance for another 6 months. They're both still working and even started putting a little money into savings. Eric has been giving them the silent treatment since the hospital incident. Krista, on the other hand, reached out to me separately to apologize for everything. She said she's been trying to get Eric to stop gambling for years, but he refuses to admit he has a problem. She's worried about their future with the baby now. I still haven't fully forgiven my parents for everything. I don't know if I ever will completely, but I've found some peace in setting clear boundaries while still offering conditional help. Jonathan has been supporting me through all of this. He's helped me stay firm when I needed to be, but also encouraged me to open my heart when that felt right. Which brings me to our news. Jonathan and I are expecting our first child. I'm about 11 weeks along. We hadn't been planning on starting a family quite yet, but sometimes life happens while you're making other plans, right? It's made me think a lot about what kind of parents we want to be. My relationship with my parents is still complicated, but I feel confident that we can break these toxic family patterns with our own children.